Chapter 3. The Law of Return. 1. What is understood by return? Common and ordinary people understand by return the return to a new womb. This means that we as souls can reincorporate ourselves within a new human organism. It is not irrelevant to state that when we return, we are born and continue to exist in the same manner, in the same way lived by us in our present existence. 2. Why is it that we do not remember anything of our previous lives? People do not remember their previous lives because their consciousness is asleep. It is clear that if their consciousness were awakened, then they would remember their previous lives. 3. Who returns? The souls who still have the possibility of salvation can return to a new womb in order to reattire themselves again with a new physical body. However, when the case is lost, when we have become definitively evil, when already any punishment has no purpose for us, then it is clear that we no longer return. We do not return into a new body anymore, and instead we enter into the infernal worlds where only weeping and gnashing of teeth are heard. 4. How can we verify that we return to this world anew? For some people, the return to this world after death is another theory. For others, a dogma, a cause for laughter, a superstition, or a belief. But for those who remember our past lives, return is a fact. This means that only by remembering our past existences will we be able to demonstrate the crude reality of the reincorporation or return to this valley of tears. However, we repeat, to remember our last lives is only possible by the awakening of the consciousness. 5. Why do we come to this world again? We come to this world with the purpose of becoming perfect, because unfortunately we are sinners, and we need to end with our errors. 6. What returns to the world of human beings? The soul of the deceased returns to this world. 7. Do animals and plants also return to this world? The souls of plants, animals, and stones are the elementals of nature. They also return to this world in continuous manner. For example, if a plant dries up and dies, then the elemental of such a plant is reborn again in a new plant. If an animal dies, the elemental of that creature returns in a new animal organism again, etc. 8. Does predestination exist? Each soul is the creator of its own destiny. If one performs good deeds, then one receives good luck. However, if one performs evil deeds, then one is reborn in this world in order to suffer and to pay everything. Now we can understand why some are born on mattresses filled with white goose feathers and others in disgrace. 9. I would like to remember my past lives, but since I have my consciousness asleep, how can I awaken it? Follow the path of the sanctity. That is the way for the awakening of the consciousness. Terminate with all of your errors, repent of all of your evil deeds, become pure in thought, word, and action. I guarantee you that your consciousness will totally awaken when you have reached true sanctity. 10. Why do many of us not believe that we had previous lives? Some people do not believe that they had previous lives because they do not remember them, and indeed they do not remember them because their consciousness is totally asleep. 11. Sir, do you remember your previous lives? Is it verifiable to you that reincorporation exists?
Samel Anwar. It is clear that if I did not remember my previous lives, I would not dare to defend the doctrine of return with so much passion. Fortunately, I remember with entire exactitude all the lives that I have had on the planet Earth. 12. How many times can one return? Samel Anwar. It is written with golden letters in the Book of Life that one returns to this world 108 times. 13. Why do some souls return as men and others as women? Samal Anwar. Everything depends on the events of life. Sometimes we must return in feminine body, and others in masculine. This is according to the events of our previous lives. 14. Why do some say that if one treats animals badly, one can return as a horse, dog, or cat, etc.? Samau Anwar. The lost souls enter the infernal worlds. There, as it is stated in the sacred scriptures, they suffer the second death. It is after such a death that the condemned souls become free of any sin. Then they can return to this world. However, they return according to the law of evolution. Namely, they evolve, returning as mineral elementals. Thereafter, they ascend to the plant state. Then later, the souls reincorporate within animal organisms, and finally, reconquer the human state that once they lost. When arriving at these heights, 108 lives are assigned to them again, so that they can become perfect. Nevertheless, if they fail again, then the same process is repeated anew. 15. How is it that when one visits certain places, one has the sensation of knowing the place so well that one can even give details and signs of the same place? Somehow Anwar. That phenomenon happens because in previous lives we were in that place. 16. How many opportunities does one have in order to return as a human being? How many as an animal? How many as a plant? And how many as a mineral? Samau Anwar. The return in human organisms is already properly calculated as 108 times, but the return in plant or animal organisms, or simply as mineral elementals, does not have an exact number. 17. Is it possible to pass from the plant kingdom to the human kingdom, or from the animal to the mineral? Samau Anwar. From the plant kingdom, one passes into the human kingdom, but through the animal kingdom. This means that we cannot skip a step, because nature makes no leaps. If animal elementals degenerate, then they devolve. They go back down to the mineral state, but first by passing, naturally, through the plant state. 18. In what dimension are the elementals from plants and minerals? Samal Anwar. The elemental creatures of nature live in the fourth dimension. 19. Are we the same human souls from ancient times, those who return, or do some definitively disappear? Samal Anwar. The present humanity is very old. It has been returning to this world for millions of years. 20. How long does it take for a human soul, after physically dying, to receive a new body? Samal Anwar. It depends upon the destiny of each one. Some are reborn again immediately, and others delay a long time to return. 21. As to students who have begun to awaken their consciousness, when they die, can they be aware of the return process? Samau Anwar. Whosoever awakens the consciousness does not need to wait for the moment of death to remember their previous lives. They can remember them in life, here and now. 22. Does Gnosis consider unfair the fact that millions of human beings live in the most complete ignorance about their evolution, return, the inner realization of their being, and the awakening of their consciousness? Samau Anwar. We Gnostics consider unfair the fact that there are not enough instructors, or better said, a great quantity of missionaries to deliver the Gnostic teachings everywhere. Nevertheless, we are not guilty of this, since this humanity is only interested in amusing themselves, obtaining money, giving themselves to pleasures, etc. If people were more comprehensive, they would be more concerned with these studies and would spread them. 23. What is the second death, and what does it have to do with return? Samau Anwar. The second death is the termination of our animal passions in the infernal worlds. This means that through its fulfillment, the condemned, the lost, arrive at the original purity, and when this happens, they leave the infernal abysses which exist within the interior of the earth. Then, as we already stated, such souls evolve again from stone to man. 24. When will it be possible for humanity to understand the why of return?
Humanity will only be able to understand the why of returning when they attain the awakening of their consciousness. 25. Why is it that people are born, die, and return again just to repeat the same song? Samael Aun Weor. Certainly, people, as you stated, are born and die, and return again in order to repeat the same song because we are submitted to the law of recurrence. In each life we return in order to repeat everything which we did in the previous life, but we suffer the consequences of the good and bad things we did in the last life. This is a vicious circle, a repetition of dramas, scenes, loves, encounters with the same people, etc. 26. What should we do in order to cease so many repetitions? Samael Aun Weor. Only by means of sanctification is it possible for us to get rid of the law of recurrence. 27. Who send us to take a physical body again? Samael Aun Weor. The angels of destiny send us to this world. They have written down in their books our good and bad actions. 28. If after the death of the physical body, the soul goes to heaven, as it is stated by many religions, why does it not stay there? Samael Aun Weor. Heaven is a reward and a recompense for our good actions. However, when the recompense is exhausted, it is then clear that we must return to this world. 29. Is it true that hell exists? Samael Aun Weor. That hell with flames, that pit with ignited coals and devils with forks, is a symbol that corresponds to a tremendous reality. In other worlds, the infernal worlds, the inferior worlds, are regions of bitterness within the interior of the planet Earth. The lost souls live in those infradimensional abysses. 30. If some souls go to hell, what can we do in order to avoid falling into those flames? Samael Aun Weor. To teach the Gnostic doctrine to all souls is our duty, since it would be unjust, as we already stated in a previous answer, to not preach these teachings in all the regions of the world. 31. Is it true that the souls fall into that pit full of flames and yet are not burned? Samael Aun Weor. Within the interior of the earth exists fire and water. The failed souls become identified with these elements of nature and suffer. However, the fire cannot burn them, nor the water drown them, because the souls are incorporeal, subtle. When seeing this subject matter about the flames from another angle, I want to tell you that such flames symbolize our animal passions. 32. Who saw those flames and became aware that the souls were there? Samael Aun Weor. Any intelligent person knows that liquid fire exists within the interior of the earth, since volcanoes show it. So it is not necessary to be wise to see those flames. Anyone can see those flames in volcanoes' craters mixed with lava and flammable gases. 33. What is the purgatorial region? Samael Aun Weor. Religions address us about purgatory, about the purgatorial region. In fact, there exist inferior and submerged molecular zones located beyond the fourth dimension. In such zones, many souls that aspire to the light are purified by eliminating their sins. 34. Is it true that by believing in God, one can escape hell? Samael Aun Weor. Many people believe in God, and yet they do not escape hell. If you want to escape from falling into the region of the darkness, then you need to sanctify yourself. 35. Is it true that by learning by memory the chapters of the Bible, one can be free of hell? Somail Aunweor. Many people who know the Bible by memory, with periods and commas, abide in hell. 36. Could somebody be saved just by believing what is written in the Bible? Somail Aunweor. Faith without works is dead faith. We need living faith, and this is based on good works. It is urgent to live in accordance with the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ. 37. Is returning an obligation? Somail Aunweor. As long as we do not attain perfection, the angels of destiny will send us to this world. 38. Is returning favorable in order to pay for our bad deeds? Somail Aunweor. All the sufferings that we have in this world are due to the bad actions from our previous lives. 39. Do we always return in the same family? Somail Aunweor. The eye continues in its own seed. This means that we continue in our descendants. In other words, we return to the same family. 40. What is the difference between return and reincarnation? Somail Aunweor. The egos return incessantly to repeat dramas, scenes, events, here and now. The ego returns to pay karma and to satisfy its desires. The word reincarnation is very demanding. Nobody could reincarnate without first eliminating the ego. It would be absurd to confuse reincarnation with return. The humanoids return with their consciousness asleep, whereas masters like Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, etc. reincarnate by will.